Welcome back. On this episode of Self-Love Ignited, I am connecting with Jess MacLeish. We talk all about overcoming addiction and a whole lot of toxicity and rising up strong, because that is exactly what Jess has done. We also really get into igniting your sass and what that means. We talk about anxiety, we talk about the world of burlesque dancing, and the incredibly healing power of sisterhood. Jess has a background that ranges from social work to burlesque dancing and actually creating Bring The SASS workshops for women. Jess is also an avid surfer and she lives on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. What are you waiting for? Dive on in. I cannot wait for you to meet Jess. My name is Katie Allen and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode of Self-Love Ignited, I am interviewing Jess MacLeish. Jess, I'm really excited to have you here. Welcome. Why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself to everybody?
Thanks, Katie. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you. I guess I'm Jess MacLeish. I am a 40-year-old woman who lives on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, Australia. We sea changed here about 9 years ago. Best decision ever. I could honestly say at the moment I'm the happiest that I've ever been in life, and have lots of moments of just pinching myself going, wow, like, is this my life? But also knowing we contribute to creating our own lives as well. So yeah, I spend a lot of time in the ocean. I've got a really nice balance with life at the moment where I really prioritize keeping my cup full so that I can flow outwards, for all the people in my life, as well as the effect I can have on my community and people around me. So I spend a lot of time surfing and got a lot of energy invested in the Peninsula Surf Sisters at the moment. It's we're just kind of starting up this community for women to feel confident and comfortable in the water and feel connected to each other. So that's super exciting. And my two passions in life are surfing and empowering women. So that's been an amazing amalgamation of both of them. I also run Bring The SASS, which is a dance and embodiment practice that kind of just came through me after, all of my life experiences and professional background and all that sort of stuff. And SASS is basically my way of being able to give back. Like, I believe that when you've been through something, the full circle of healing is when it comes out and through you. And then, so I'm super passionate about being able to hold space for women and work in my community. And I'm just very happy.
That's awesome. Also, that surfing thing that you're doing with women to empower women. If I lived near you, I would be all over that, because I've always wanted to learn how to surf, and it like terrifies me.
Yep.
And I feel like learning like from women and doing it in a community of women would change the whole game. So I just on a personal note, I just think that that's really awesome.
Oh yeah, no, I'd be roping you in, that's for sure. You'd love it. The women, it's just incredible, like the spirit. I mean, I think women have such a fierce and incredible spirit inside them, and when they unite, like what comes out in women when we come together, it's something really magical. And I see that in like my own healing. Women have been a really big part of it, and also, Bring The SASS, I see that. But in the surfing world, it's like, oh, we don't have a space for that. So yeah, now we do down here on the peninsula.
That's awesome. So I want to hear all about your story, because the woman sitting here in front of me today is very different from the woman that you used to be. You and I've chatted a little bit before, so I'm really keen to hear your story. So, we are obviously, the name of the podcast is Self-Love Ignited. So we're all about self-love and telling the stories of women like you who have made this transformation and come from a place of not liking or not loving parts of themselves to really like embracing all that they are. I would love to hear your story. So why don't you sort of go back to the beginning, wherever your challenges with yourself began. Tell us a little bit about how that manifested in your life.
Well, I think the point I can pinpoint the most is when I started to transition into adulthood. So that adolescent kind of phase, because I think I had a really happy childhood, very loving parents and family. So when you start to try and find your own identity, that's really terrifying. So I've always been a really deep thinker and feeler, and I think that navigation to finding myself as a woman was particularly difficult because of that sensitivity. And then when I look back on my life, I kind of go, oh, there's a few really key stages. So early on as a teenager, there was a lot of difficulty in trying to navigate life. And I started using cannabis really, really early just to sleep, because I was always thinking about life. And then that became that sort of controlled me for a really long time. And then, I ended up moving out of home really young because I wanted to be independent. I pretty much thought I was like moving towards who I was, but I was really disconnecting from myself. And that sort of phase of my life probably lasted about 10 to 12 years, where I was, using a lot of drugs. I got into quite a toxic relationship. The relationship I was in actually ended up, the guy I was with ended up being gay. So there was a lot of disconnect from like my feminine self and sensuality, and there's just a lot of heartache in that relationship. So using drugs helped me to disconnect from pain. But when you're disconnected from pain, you're also disconnected from all the good things. So you can't hear yourself and your intuition anymore. So like so many stupid decisions, like, lots of periods, like being homeless, or, just not being able to hold down a house or a job or friendships or relationships with my family. Like it was just everything kind of fell to pieces, and using so many drugs, like had quite a lot of episodes with psychosis because of that, and just absolutely like no value for myself at all. And it wasn't until I think I was about 26, and my best friend who, you know how you have that one person that can speak through, like they speak to your soul?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I love that about female relationships. So I was sort of starting to feel like I was, in the wrong place in life. I was so disconnected, I didn't even realize. And then I just kept saying to her, oh, I'm just doing my head in. No, I'm just doing my head in, because I was engaged to this guy at the time. So, and then she said to me, no, tell me what you're thinking and feeling. And she drew me out of me basically. And her friendship and holding space for my truth to be loved and seen gave me the courage to leave that relationship and to start to try and make a life on my own. Which, at, about 27 when that happened, it was exciting and terrifying all at once. And so I started trying things to just, find who I was. And I ended up accidentally trying a burlesque dance class, and that just started a whole new trajectory for me, where I was dancing all the time, and I met all these incredible women who were all going through their own sort of deep personal journeys, and that had drawn them to, burlesque, because it's quite an empowering thing to do. And just like that like power of the sisterhood just kind of threw me. I just couldn't believe, like I'd never felt that before in such a strong way. And with their love and support, and also, the reconnection of my body and my sensuality through dance, and being able to also move a lot of energy through me, like stuck emotion and stuff like that, started to really bring me into this completely like blossomed version of myself. And then I just wanted to help other people. I felt like that was my calling, to help other people. So that kind of went like really, really fast. And then the next 7 to 8, actually, probably a little bit longer, 7, 8, 9 years of that was performing, and I was singing in different bands as well. And I went from being like on drugs with a, that terrible life, to being on stages and, flying around the country to perform in shows and meeting rock stars. And I even like got on television, and, I was doing that, and then singing in these bands as well. And then also like following my studies and starting my career as a social worker. And everything was just going like so hard and so fast. And I was getting all this like praise and accolades, and everybody thought I had it all together. And then I got to, but at this time, no one knew I still was using a lot of cannabis behind the scenes as well. So at, I got to 35 and everything was just like flying around me. And then one day I just had a complete breakdown, like cried and cried. I remember crying for like 5 solid hours, but like that soul wrenching sobbing. And I felt like pain that I didn't even know was inside me. I've never felt that depth of pain before or since. It was really terrifying as well, because having used cannabis for so long, I didn't know how to regulate my own emotions. I was also kind of self-medicating anxiety. So that overwhelm that was happening in my system, all that, I didn't know how to deal with any of it. I didn't know if I was going mad. I just thought I had to just pull it all back together and keep going with this life I'd created for myself. But then I actually had the support of some incredible therapists who and doctors. Like, I was really lucky that I landed with people that had a holistic approach and could see what was going on. Like, one doctor said to me, well, I could prescribe you some pills for your anxiety, but I'm not going to do it. And then they started to talk to me about lifestyle and like dopamine hits for pleasure, and like looking for all the big good things outside myself to keep myself going, rather than finding this cultivation with that beautiful soft serotonin release you get from looking at a sunset, or slowing down. And they educated me about my nervous system, and I was really well supported. And so at that time, I got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue and anxiety and PTSD. And every single bit of, like, it was like I couldn't hide anymore from myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd sort of gone from, like, I guess, trying to find myself then into those burlesque years, like thinking I'd found myself, but still really reaching outside myself for validation and not realizing that's what I was doing. And then when I got to that point, that breakdown was actually a huge awakening for me to just go, like, you can't keep doing this. You can't, it's not sustainable to be like this. And I had no other option but to turn my attention inwards, which is something that had always been a great challenge for me, especially with my overactive mind. So I started to explore, as well as all of the therapy that I was having, I was exploring like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, energy work, like all these kind of holistic modalities that helped me to find a deeper part of me that was underneath all of that noise. So, spent a lot of time in nature. I pretty much just disappeared from life for a couple of years. I mean, I was very deeply in my own life and with my family and friends, but yeah, the Jess that had been on stages everywhere, and you can't see this on the podcast, guys, but I'm doing hands. I'm like, they're out there, Jess, just totally disappeared and rewired. And that was the best 2 years of my, the most important 2 years of my life, because it gave me a relationship with myself that was so much deeper than anything I'd experienced before. And I was, I was able to work through that trauma and pain that I was holding in myself, and realize that everything I thought was so scary was actually, like, it was necessary, and it was scary, but it wasn't as scary once I actually got there, because all I was scared of was actually feeling. And when you understand that feelings and emotions are like pain and energy in your body that needs to move, and you're held in a beautiful space by friends or therapists or whoever to move that, it actually just becomes a process. It's not as terrifying as I was thinking when I was running from it for a really long time. And it was at that point that I'd been teaching dance for years and years, and like burlesque dance, and that sort of started to morph with my own personal development into the Bring The SASS practice, which started to like meld together dance and meditation and all of these things, because I was just like, holy SHIT, this world is missing this deep education, like, of how important it is to connect with ourselves and like spaces to be able to do that. I think it's becoming more common now, actually. We're in a really good time. We're very lucky. So yes, I don't know if that answered all of your questions, but
yeah.
and yeah. Oh,
I'm just really curious because like that's such a journey, and I love that you found the support that you needed when you needed it, you know, when you were in that dark time, and it's just like the right people were in your life, and
yep.
they helped you connect to yourself in this like profound new way that you didn't even know was possible, and that was quite scary. Like it is a process and it is scary, and I think understanding, you know, number one, that your emotions can't actually hurt you. It's like the fear of your emotions is the scary thing, but actually feeling them is like not always pleasant, but afterwards it always feels good once you've processed it and let it, you know, let it run its course. But so what I'm really curious about is this sort of reconnecting to yourself. Would you say that you like love yourself now? Like, is self-love a term that you identify with, or is have you like, are you still on the journey to get there?
Well, I think the journey never ends because I think there's always deeper levels that you can reach of knowing and loving yourself. But yes, I do love myself deeply now. I think I don't actually identify with the term self-love. I think it's gotten all a bit like bubble baths and facials kind of, you know, when anything gets mainstream, which is a beautiful thing that the concept of self-love is becoming mainstream as well. But I more identify with the term self-connection. Like I think it's about valuing yourself enough to spend time with yourself. And I think self-love, it doesn't always mean something that feels good. Like for me, the most loving things I did for myself was to, you know, face those emotions and things like that didn't feel nice at the time, but oh my God, afterwards, like when you've freed that from your being, it's just incredible. So yes, I do definitely feel a lot further down the journey of self-love. And yeah, I think there's always more possible.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it is a journey, and I think we're on this until the day we die. And it's like if somebody said that they're there, like they finished, they're at the end, but they're still breathing, like you're not. You know, like there's always more layers. There's always more to do, and sometimes we go through phases as human beings where we might dive really deep, like you did during those 2 years. You really dive deep, and you really are like doing the work. And then you might go through phases where it's not so much an intentional thing. And then you might dive back in again when something else happens, you know, and it's normal to have those ebbs and flows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's always like rolling along in the background. Like I think once you've had an experience like that that's taken you to those depths, you've got a new level of awareness. So you start to integrate, like it doesn't have to hit you as hard and fast. You just kind of deal with these little things as they come up in your daily life, and it doesn't feel like a thing. So it becomes a lifestyle to be connected to yourself and act lovingly towards yourself.
Yeah. It doesn't take brain power anymore because it's just it's like your default setting. Right?
Yes, correct. That's a really good way to describe it. Yeah. And whenever I speak to anyone who's in those early stages of, you know, forming that relationship with themselves, it's often, and I remember this stage as well, where it's like so overwhelming and you're like, I can't live like this forever. This is too full on. But that's just because your entire system, like not only your thoughts and your brain and your feelings and all of that, it's like your cells, every part of you is relearning this new way of being. It's like you're learning how to human completely again. So that settles. So if anyone's feeling like that right now, I just really want you to know that, that's just going to land softly and gently in you, and you won't always feel like that full onness that you might be feeling now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hugely. Yeah. So I want to know, how did you get from that, you know, those two very deep, very transformational years to where you are today? Like tell us about that, and tell us about this sort of journey into Bring the SASS and creating this beautiful modality that you've come up with.
Well, actually, again, for another beautiful therapist that I worked with helped me to understand the need to balance my life. So I think the first thing was like allowing all the stuff that happens in your identity, where I was like, oh, I'm Jess and I'm a burlesque performer, and rah, rah. I had to actually allow that to just go. And I had to stay connected to what was alive in the moment for me, which was not burlesque anymore. So I had to actually process that and farewell that and honor all that that had brought me. And then once I did that, that was when Bring the SASS, like I believe Bring the SASS is its own entity and I'm just the vessel that it comes through. And my job is to be clear and in alignment so that I can allow it to flow through. So yeah, once I removed the pieces that weren't serving me anymore. So one of those was burlesque. The other huge one was my cannabis habit. So after 20 years, that stopped when I discovered surfing, actually. And when I got to the point of actually being able to truthfully admit to myself, like I'd never actually admitted that it was a problem. Like I always just told myself that, oh no, I can do it and I'll manage it. Once I actually went, no, this has been 20 years, you actually can't. This is a problem for you and you need to let it go. Yeah, once I cleared those things, Bring the SASS was able to come through. But that also meant like learning how to manage my anxiety naturally. It meant like learning a lot of new skills, and all of that actually kind of took that 2 years to happen. So by the time that I came out of that 2 years, like it wasn't like, all right, now I'm going to start this new thing. It all just flowed into everything because I'd been laying a lot of really deep foundations in those 2 years. So I think it just naturally happens. Yeah, and so, yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. So this beautiful therapist I worked with, because I was working in mental health and trying to run Bring the SASS as well. And I had a few people that I spoke to that all kind of pointed out, like, your cup is really empty from working in mental health while you're trying to create for Bring the SASS. So you're just feeling like you have to give, give, give. Like, what about filling up your own cup? And I was like, oh, right. And that was when somebody said to me, like, if you help people without filling up your own cup, you're doing it from this place of obligation. So it's actually not like the energy you're helping them with isn't like a clean, pure energy. If you're filling up your own cup first and you're in integrity and love with yourself in those actions, that's going to flow out in how you help people. So that's actually like a truly loving way of help. And so that gave me permission to go, all right, I can't keep working in mental health and create for Bring the SASS. And it was at that point when I, with the loving support of my husband, who said, just quit your job, you'll get something new in a couple of days, you always do.
Yeah.
I said, all right. And I quit my job. And then I walked into this beautiful general store in a little surf town on the peninsula. The weekend before that, I'd written down everything I was looking for in a job and cried my heart out in the middle of the forest, and walked into this store, got a job on the spot. So now I have this job that's got all the things that nourish me, which is like working with food, with people in a community near nature, chuck my board in the car, go for a surf before or after work. And then I'm so like, I feel like I'm not even working. And then I come home and I can create for Bring the SASS from this place of real, like a full cup. So that was a huge key part, was actually like valuing myself enough to know that, yeah, that was the most important thing to being able to actually create through love and flow.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love the image of like, you have to fill your cup first. I'm a very visual
Yeah.
person, so I see this in my brain as you're saying it. And it's true. Like if you have an empty cup, it's like you're scraping the bottom and people are just not getting the best, and whatever they're getting
Absolutely.
does not have a nice energy about it, right? It's like this
Yeah.
like this tight restriction almost. Whereas
Yes.
when your cup is literally overflowing and you're just giving away the overflow because you have got so much to give, it's so beautiful. That's so much more beautiful. Yeah.
And it's potent. That energy is potent, and people feel like everything is energy, they say. And people feel that. So I think the results that you get in anything you do in life with a full cup, it feels really, really, it's really strong, you know?
So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, what the heck even fills my cup? How do I figure that out? Is this something that you like, was this just an act of experimenting for you and finding what felt good? Or like sort of, how did you sort of find your sweet spot, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I think that's probably how it begins. Like if you've got literally absolutely no idea, just follow what makes you curious or makes you like, if a spark is ignited in you, like you see a flyer for a class and you go, oh, I wonder about that, follow that. And if you start following these tangents of curiosity and or anything that makes you feel joyful, you're eventually going to sort of land in some sort of a slipstream of flowing energy, but you just have to follow that feeling.
Yeah.
So, and you really have to just like know that if you're actively putting yourself out there and trying things and honoring your curiosities, that the universe will answer that with what it provides for you, because it can see that you're just as invested in finding your thing. So it's going to bring your thing closer to you as well. But just don't go out there going, I have to find my thing. Like, don't be in your head with it. Just be in your heart with it and go, I wonder what this is going to bring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when you're very disconnected, like if somebody was like you know, how you used to be like very disconnected, there might be that like, I don't even know what fills my cup. How do I begin? And it is really easy to get into your head. I have to find the thing. And then that like that nasty energy just gets attached to it again. So yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
Just sort of like being open and just those little tiny bits of like, ooh, look at that. Like when something catches your eye, like follow that. Don't be afraid to sort of, you know, follow things even if they don't make sense logically. Basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened to me with surfing. Like my husband surfed the whole time we've been together, and I was that chick sitting on the beach going, oh, I wish I could do that. But never giving it a go. And when I caught my first wave, like I'd brought a stand-up paddleboard because one day I just got in my car, drove to the local surf shop and spent all my money on a stand-up paddleboard, which I'd never done before. So I was following the thing. Like I had a feeling and I followed it. And then, you know, eventually I took that board out to somewhere that little waves broke, and I caught a wave, and that just changed my life. Like this wave was like half a foot on a massive stand-up paddleboard. You know, now years down the track, I'm surfing on a surfboard and my whole life revolves around it. But, you know, if I'd just done that because it's like, oh, well, my husband surfs and I want to be a surfer, like that wasn't from the heart and that wasn't following the flow. And that's why it took so much longer for me to find my natural connection or for it to find me. So, yeah, I would never have predicted that was going to happen.
So you are like, so now you have this beautiful business that you have created, and you really help women through a really beautiful transformation. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about Bring the SASS, about what it is and about how people can work with you if that's the thing that they go, ooh, maybe, how can they work with you?
Well, you know, now that you say that, it's a very interesting time for that question, because Bring the SASS is in I think since lockdown and stepping back from teaching weekly classes last year because of that, I actually was able to tune back into myself and into spirit and hear that Bring the SASS wants so much more than weekly classes. It wants to bring the deeper embodiment work through because, there is incredible potential for transformation that happens. And I guess at the moment, I'm allowing that to reform. So at the moment, there's a couple of things coming up later in the year, but I'm not, I'm doing a bit of study with dance and embodiment and things like that behind the scenes as well. But right now, I can't even tell you, come and do this and this and this. However, we do have, I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes, website, social media, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of quiet at the moment because it's in a reformation phase. But, you know, again, following that flow with that and allowing it to re-emerge as a more potent energy and entity. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Terrible answer.
No, but you're living it though. Like you are
Yeah.
literally living the advice that you gave of follow that, you got that little hint, that little something needs to change. This needs to grow. It's ready for its next phase in evolution. So instead of you following your logic brain of like, no, I have a good thing. I need to stick with what I've been doing. You're actually living your advice and stepping back and going, oh, maybe, and allowing it to evolve. So that's beautiful. That's perfect advice. You're doing
Well,
it.
thank you for hearing that, because that was quite scary for me to actually say. So thank you for hearing that and receiving that. I really, I feel very seen. Thank you.
Yeah. I think as entrepreneurs, I think so often there very much is this pressure in the online space to like appear like you have it all together. Appear like everything is perfect and like it's just exactly as it should be. And the reality is we are all human beings living lives behind the scenes. And sometimes our businesses are like ticking along and they're amazing. And other times we do need to step back. So yeah, I think it's beautiful. And thank you for being willing, even though it was scary. Thank you for being willing to share that and share the truth instead of, trying to give the like, the safe answer, I guess.
Well, I mean, the reason we're all entrepreneurs as well is because we're doing something we're passionate about. So we have to keep connected with what that, I call it like the PowerPoint, that PowerPoint where the energy is the most potent. We have to stay there all the time. So being an entrepreneur is quite difficult because of that, because you're constantly tuning into that alignment. And if there's a whole lot of success and expectation around something that's alive at the moment, but you're feeling that that's not the PowerPoint of the work, then that's your responsibility to do that. So I think a lot of people maybe who aren't entrepreneurs might not realize that constant struggle that goes on with it. And that if you are and you're experiencing that for the first time, like, full permission to lean into that, because that is going to make the next phase come through, and it's going to be so much more potent and beautiful than trying to hang on to something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Jess, I'm curious if there is somebody listening to this who is maybe where you were, in that very disconnected place, maybe not allowing themselves to feel their emotions, perhaps using a substance, whether it's cannabis or something else, to numb or to escape. Is there sort of one piece of advice or one thing that you would recommend that they start with, like a starting point?
That's a really hard question.
I know.
But I believe when you're disconnected, you're disembodied. Mm-hmm. So I believe it's so basic. The first way back to anything is the breath. And this was something that my first psychologist taught me, so I'm going to pass it along because it was a game changer. So instead of feeling pressure to go and meditate and go find yourself and do this, she just said to me 3 times a day, stop and take 3 deep breaths, but be completely present with the experience of that breath. And then she explained to me, the reason I'm asking you to do this is because we need to start rewiring the connections in your neural pathways and reconnecting your brain and your body. And then, it's everyone can breathe, like no one can't breathe. So all it means is being there and experiencing what you do in those moments. A very good friend said to me once, you're only ever 2 deep breaths away from yourself. And I've carried that for a long time. So just starting to foster that connection with that deeper awareness in you through your breath, even if it's 1 deep breath a day, start there. The rest will flow on, because if you're starting to connect into that deeper self, where, your heart and soul resides, that's where your connection with the divine is as well. So if you start to hear those messages living inside your soul, if they're starting to speak, that's when the universe starts to slowly respond. And it might take a long time or it might be quick, but that's the very, very starting point.
That's beautiful. I love that. Okay, Jess, if is there anything else, as we're getting ready to wrap up, Is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything that feels important that I haven't asked you about? Any other little bits of wisdom that you would like to leave listeners with today? You've already given a lot, so like no pressure.
I was gonna say, I feel like I need to have a big nugget to just drop the mic and run. But no, like
no, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you've asked really beautiful questions too, Katie. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I think that these conversations are so valuable. And I think so often the value is in the little bits like between questions. It's in those little nuances where you might think you know what you're going to say, and then something will just come out and you're like, I didn't know that was even in there.
like this whole conversation.
Like everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's part of the magic of women. I think this is what we do. Like we connect from the heart and we can have these conversations. And by you and I having this conversation and sharing it with the world, my hope and my intention, and I know that yours is too, that we are going to be able to help other women who are sort of on the same path. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
there is definite magic in feminine connections and storytelling. So yes.
Hugely. And I think as much as we would all like to be doing everything in person, the fact is that's currently not possible in the world. And also you and I live in the same country, but like on opposite sides of the country, or well, same side. I'm just a lot farther north than you, but we can.
You're above me.
I'm above you, and but I mean, we can talk to women all over the world. So I think the beautiful thing with technology is that we can create this feeling of sisterhood and allow it to reach far and wide, and it's just yeah.
Thank you, Katie, for the work you're doing. It's really, really important, and it's been such an honor to be involved in this, because I think you're right. Why not reach as many people, as many women out there as we can? Thanks, technology.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Jess, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate you. I'm so grateful for your time and your energy and your story. And thank you for being here today with me.
Thanks, Katie.
All of the links mentioned during the episode are down in the show notes. Please make sure to go on over and check them out. Also, please remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and I would be forever grateful if you would go on over and leave us a review on iTunes as well. That's going to help this message reach more women. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Here is to you loving yourself.